I would definitely prefer one person doing end to end of this. It's too early to even say that we understand the data of TA very well. I think that is
Right.
the first big challenge that any TA today is facing about, right? Treat or AI as your friend and not as your enemy, right? You never get somebody as per your JD, right?
Yeah.
I think
Right.
it's primarily Raj, the interaction and the continuous communication that you have with your hiring managers and business, right?
Hello, everyone. Today we have Swapna with us, who's going to help us understand how a talent acquisition job role should look like. Swapna comes with a decade of experience in the recruitment industry, and she has worked with some amazing startups. And she has also contributed a lot in our research in building Reczee ATS. And thanks a lot, Swapna, for taking the time. And how are you doing, first of all?
Hey Raj, thank you so much for an amazing introduction and great. I'm happy to help anybody out here in recruitment industry. Looking forward for this interaction. So let's see what's kept in the discussion now.
Definitely, definitely. So yeah, Swapna, I chose this topic primarily because like when we started as well, we started realizing that if you see a lot of talent acquisition JDs, they would have as an expectation that they should be able to handle end-to-end recruitment, right?
Right.
So and in this end-to-end recruitment, it's like you have to source candidates, you have to do scheduling, you have to do stakeholder management, you have to do offer negotiation, you have to actually roll out offers and then still do post offer engagement and something like that to sort of keep that candidate coming to the organization, right? So do you think it's a valid justified it's a valid sort of expectation to have from one person to handle all of these things?
So I think Raj, this is the most debated question that I ever faced in my tenure. Wherever I worked with, and I
Yeah.
always have been debating with either with my managers or with my peers or with my juniors, maybe, right?
Yeah.
So there's no perfect answer for this. There's no one answer. I
Yeah.
think it completely depends on the organization size. What is the next step for the organization going to be? As a
Right.
leader, what do people think about it?
Yeah.
So I think. It's very debatable topic, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
But if I have to take an individual opinion of me,
Right.
I would prefer to have an end-to-end person delivering everything, because a
Right.
life cycle of a candidate, or the journey through where the candidate goes through different interviews to interactions to his onboarding, right?
Yeah.
I go a little step further, of course, of this,
Yeah.
where I tell my candidate, my team, right, where they should be in contact with their candidates when they turn into an employee, at least
Yeah.
for the next 3 months.
Yeah.
So, understanding their onboarding process, if that's going smoothly, and onboarding doesn't only mean filling up the forms, but
Yeah.
understanding which department they work into, how are they settling into,
Yeah.
are there any challenge that they're facing, making them comfortable, but at the same time taking a feedback which can go back to probably so many departments, right? So it can be
Right.
onboarding to compensation to HRBP to the business itself, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
to us itself. So
Yeah.
I would definitely prefer one person doing end to end of this, because he
Right.
can understand the candidate journey very, very well, right?
Right.
Yeah. So this is my thought process, and I believe at least it has worked for me and people who have worked with me. For them,
Right.
it has given lot of scope to understand about a person, right? About a
Right.
candidate, what does he like, and they can contribute in so many terms.
Yeah, and in general, also, as you mentioned, this is something that not a lot of recruiters understand. After the candidate joins, if you are with them for 3 months just to understand, this also serves as a feedback loop, right? That
Absolutely.
in case you are reaching out to a new candidate for another position, you know that what are the expectations that you are anyways going to have after 3 months of
Yeah.
their joining the
Yeah,
organization.
I mean to say we have, like, I have processed it with our
Yeah,
APs also, so that it doesn't get lost into the loop,
yeah,
right? After onboarding somebody, because this can be also an indicator for, say, if there is an attrition, an early
mm,
attrition that we say about, right?
mm,
Whether we can capture that and we can pass on the message, to the HRBPs about this, right? So if
right.
it is well captured, it can be very, very, useful to just not the recruitment as a feedback, but to many other
Right.
departments also.
Right. Makes sense. And do you see this changing over a decade, right? For example, let's take 2013 as one snapshot and say 2023. What was the role at that stage versus what it is now? Is it uh, more heavy in terms of the expectations, or what was it before?
I think Raj, 2023, 2022 has been very challenging in different ways, right?
Yeah.
You're right. From attracting the talent to sustaining the competition to, the whole buzz about AI, right, and ChatGPT.
Right.
I think
Yeah.
those were not there in 2013, right?
Yeah.
Every period has its own challenges, but
Yeah.
today the challenge is very different. Where how to even design an interview process is
Right.
the first step that everybody is thinking about, right? Where
Yeah.
there's so many AI automations tools and chat gpts that can help a candidate, right? But you have to be a little more smarter,
Yeah.
right, to design your interview process. So I think that is
Right.
the first big challenge that any ta today is facing about, right?
Right. Right.
And again, how do you scale that up?
Yeah.
2013 was a different era altogether. I think there also the interview process was the first thing that we have to solve for, right? The first step that we have to solve for.
Yeah.
So I think same problem, but the definition of the problem has changed in both the eras, I feel.
Right. And
Right?
probably also the volume of candidates. Do you think
Of
that also
course,
has affected?
of course, it has changed to 2013 to 2022 and
Yeah.
23, right?
Right.
The ask of the candidates have changed a lot. I think
Yeah.
candidates have become more educated, aware. At the same
Right.
time, even the interviews are very educated and aware about how they need to, have those
Yeah.
interview discussions designed, right? So
Yeah.
everything has evolved a lot,
Right.
right? But yeah, both the period had their own challenges as such.
Got it. Got it. And as an ideal state, right? Let's say 2023, if we had to define a job description, what are some key areas that you think should be the focus areas for a talent acquisition person that you're hiring, right? What kind of things that they should focus on more?
First and foremost, I think understanding of the business is very, very important, right? Of
Hmm.
anybody
Yeah.
today, because there is a reach where you can get information of the business and translate that to yourself and to the candidates, right? So
Hmm.
that is first thing that I definitely want any TA person to understand very, very well. Right.
Right. Right.
First is that. Second is about understanding the candidate journey. Very,
Hmm.
very important, of what the candidate has been through, what
Yeah.
would he or she look for next into their in their journey, right, and in their career.
Yeah.
So that's another important aspect that anybody should focus on to.
Yeah.
So here again, that reduces Raj the pipeline creation, right? If I
Yeah.
can focus and understand what a candidate has gone through, it
Yeah.
helps me to present the right candidate. I'm not saying they are the best candidate, but the right candidate and potential candidates is very, very important, right?
Right.
Third is going to be your interview process. Today, a lot of focus on that is there.
Yeah.
Where how do we interview? Because given the talent landscape today available, right? And the adaptability of learning and so much of other tools available, right?
Yeah.
You have to also look just not for next 6 months, but for a 1 year progression time, where you can understand from a candidate whether this person will go to a next level, or he or she would be able to able to adopt new technology, new terms, and everything else, right? So having
Right.
that
Right.
vision is very, very important, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Right, and smartly designing about the entire interview process, onboarding process, it's very, very, I think, essential, and it's gained a lot of importance today.
Right. Right. Sounds good. And like, do you think the industry is where your ideal expectations are? Do you think a lot of these are very, I see it as a subjective sort of thing, right? A lot of these things you cannot measure with some number saying that, okay, how good are you able to measure, say, candidate experience in a uh, talent acquisition versus candidate kind of experience, right? So, do you think where the industry is right now is where these ideal expectations are?
I won't say yes completely,
Yeah.
because a lot of automation, understanding about what data means today, right? I
Yeah.
think we just started with that.
Yeah.
It's too early to even say that we understand the data of TA very well, right?
Right.
But there is a lot of scope, right,
Yeah.
Raj, with the smart tools coming in, and if you apply the a normal business logic, right? Or
Right.
a common sense logic that you want to get an outcome of that.
Yeah.
Of course, yes, there are technology and there are platforms who can help you and support you to get out with that data and understand and then react on that, right? So
Right.
we have just started right now, but for sure.
Right. Got it. Got
I've
it.
seen so
And
many companies still now who are working on Excel, right?
yeah.
And which is not bad. I'm going to say
Right.
if they can translate that data somewhere,
Yeah.
fantastic. Yeah.
Yeah, I've also talked to a lot of recruiters who manage a lot of these spreadsheets, and like there's nothing wrong with it. It's just that either you have to be very sort of ninja spreadsheet tracker, and everyone in the organization needs to sort of follow that model, or else it breaks, right?
Yeah.
If you don't share that same structure across multiple recruiters,
Yeah. I
it
mean, the process has to be enabling for the recruiters,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
Right.
yeah,
Otherwise, yes, you will get lost in the long run to
yeah.
maintain
Right,
the data. So it
right.
has to
And
be that recruiters feel easy to, update the post, update the details across.
right, right. And I also see a lot of recruiters getting stuck into like tactical things in terms of like say scheduling of calls, sending rejection emails, a lot of these things, right? So how do you see freeing them up out of these things and
I,
focusing
I
on
think
the things?
it's all about technology, but also making it sure, Raj, it is a part of a KRA also,
Yeah,
right? I think the time you add this as a KRA, where we
yeah,
talk about how hygienic you have been about your data, right? How have you been kind of responding to, as you mentioned about rejection emails, right?
yeah, yeah.
I think I've learned this from one of my seniors in Mintra, where a lot of importance to data was given and a lot of
Yeah,
importance to maintaining the hygiene was very, very required, right? So
right.
once you turn that into an KRA, I think automatically people start, kind of following that as a
Following
rule.
it. Yeah,
Unfortunately, but yeah,
yeah.
that's only the way it works then. Yeah.
Right, right, right. Makes sense. No, actually, that is one big motivation also for recruiters,
Yeah.
right? If you want to bring structure somewhere, you need to track some metric, right? So if you
Absolutely,
sort of
absolutely.
track
Yeah,
that metric,
yeah.
makes sense.
But
And
I think Raj today the leaders have to be very, smart to structure that, right? How do
yeah,
they
yeah.
take down the KRAs, and every KRA means and an impact that can be created, where a
Right.
recruiter feels good enough to kind of perform that KRA.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And a lot of recruiters also, when I talk to them, they would say that okay, the panel is not filling feedback effectively, and you have to run back and figure out. And same with say probably hiring managers not responding early enough to screen candidates. So all of these, if there is a place where you can track these numbers, that okay, this is the time where it's going out of say your TAT being 20 days. 5 days is just waiting for a resume approval. It becomes a challenge for you to sort of justify that, right?
Yeah,
And it's not just the recruiter who's liable to this, right? Once you have those numbers that okay, this is where the time is being spent, it makes much more sense.
yeah.
But yeah, understood your thought process here. But then so how do you promote these activities, right? How do you promote these TA leaders to follow this structure? How do you get them to believe that this is the process that you need to follow to ensure that this ideal state is achieved?
So I think, Raj, there's no one answer. Again, you have to experiment with that. But probably I can quote you one example from Mintra, and this can be in two folds, right?
Yeah,
One is about the hiring manager. Again, he is responsible to build his team now. That becomes his KRA again, right? Where he
yeah,
is responsible to deliver a project, and for that, he needs a
yeah,
certain number of talent with him, right? So
right,
once that has been discussed and that's been passed on and agreed upon, I think that comes automatically. Secondly, when you start engaging with your hiring managers as your hiring partners, right? I think
yeah,
the attitude shift happens right there.
yeah,
And again, again, make it this more automated, make it more mechanized, where after you do an hiring, where again, this is something I'm quoting from Mintra, Practo, and my other companies that I worked into, is where you finish doing an hiring and somebody is onboarded, or even if you make an offer, right? There has to be some kind of communication in format of a form or maybe from the system, where the recruiters and the hiring partners can kind of give a feedback to each other, and it's
right,
capped. right?
Right.
So again, when there is some documented evident and there is a documented data, right?
Yeah.
You always have something to answer upon or build up a story upon, saying, "Hey, here we probably didn't go right. Here
Yeah.
is something that we probably lost a candidate because of XYZ reasons," right? If
Yeah.
all this is being tracked, and also you're also making the hiring manager responsible, so it becomes like a marketplace where the
Yeah.
vendor and the end user is there, right? And you both are
Right.
kind of rating each other.
Right. Makes sense. And as you mentioned, right, this interaction with recruiter versus hiring manager should be measured in a way. I think it should be also measured with every other interaction, right? For example, recruiter versus panel, candidate versus panel, probably say recruiter versus an agency if you're working with an agency, right? So this can bring lot more ground level visibility to the leader who's sort of
Absolutely.
operating
Absolutely.
on the bird's eye view, right? Yeah.
Absolutely
Um,
agree with you. Yeah.
yeah, makes sense. And what about the recruiters, right? If you had to give some sort of concrete advice to them to get to this ideal state of, say, focusing more on the subjective aspects of it, focusing more on candidate relationships, how do you sort of promote those kind of things amongst these recruiters?
I think, Raj, of course, as I said, it has to be discussed during the interview process and try to understand from the recruiter what they have been doing and how have been they been trying to understand about TA process as such, right?
Yeah,
Um,
yeah,
Once they are with me as my team member, I think the projects, right, that we drive, or I think that is one way that we can all focus on to, where
hmm.
um, probably shadow over, like we also do it for the new panelists, right, where we do
Onboarding, yeah,
onboarding. And so I think once I kind of to start from that life cycle, right, if I
hmm.
onboard somebody with an experienced recruiter, right, or a
Yeah,
person who has been in the system, will give a lot of information, a lot of download about how the interview process happens, why do you do a certain thing, for what reason, right?
right.
So that is one way of looking at it. That is one thing. And secondly, I think I'm not saying that we everybody needs to be very high aspirational, but this is
Yeah,
very basic hygiene that anybody needs to maintain, right?
right,
That can only give you tomorrow, and what you say is a little confidence about that you can probably take the next leap in your career. uh,
right.
right, today we all are talking about data, we're all talking about the measurements,
Yeah,
about why it has been successful, why it has not been successful, right? And
yeah,
as, you have to only probably look as in a way where you can look at it at a very positive way, where you can know where you have to improve, right? So
right.
yeah.
Makes sense. And what about, do you suggest any upskilling kind of things for these recruiters? Do you see any of these things also helping in terms of like say sourcing strategies or sourcing sort of ways to figure out these candidates, or any other sort of tooling or anything that they can upskill on in a way?
There are a lot of that which is available right now in the market,
Yeah,
right? From your
yeah,
LinkedIn to, I think every other platform today is offering that course,
yeah,
right? But of course, having internal sourcing challenges,
yeah,
right? Working on projects which will probably bring a different thought in the group itself, right? Like
yeah,
just to quote probably one of the project that we had done in Mintra, right, where we
yeah,
wanted to hire or probably create a passive pipeline of candidates for our future requirements, right?
yeah,
So how do we do that? How do we engage? How do we understand about the candidates that we want to pull in, right? So that engagement with the business and your team is very, very important.
right,
There's something that we had driven in Mintra called as Tech Mingle, right? Which are tech, like, focus tech events which were focused on open source, or focused on the normal challenges any e-commerce platform or any other open source will go through, right?
yeah,
So those events, I think, helped just not the Mintra employees, but also helped the TA, because we were
right,
able to brand ourselves that we are a tech-enabled fashion company.
yeah.
Also, at the same time, we were able to kind of create a passive pipeline for ourselves, right? Yeah.
Right.
So
Makes sense.
during all those events, driving different learning platforms, skill sets, everything is very, very important.
Got it. And does knowledge sharing happen between the TAs in your team? Like in general, if like say, are there any weekly, monthly sessions where some recruiter shares their learnings or
Oh,
shares their tricks? But
absolutely. Absolutely. I think, Raj, unfortunately, there is no golden rule for TA, right?
Yeah, yeah,
There is no,
yeah.
I think it's all about the uniqueness that you bring on to.
Right.
The more you interact, the more you understand people,
Yeah,
the economy to business to everything, right? And those
right,
interactions and those networking help you to probably land into with a good with a good candidate, right? Where you think there's a
right.
potential to hire. So there are a lot of such interactions which are very, very necessary. So I think TA community today, just I'm saying not within the organization but outside the organization
Outside.
also,
Yeah,
is encouraged and welcomed a lot.
yeah,
I've seen a big shift there happening right now, where there are so many communities which have been formed, from recruitment route to recruitment adda to the recruiting adda, and
yeah,
there's so many to name, right?
yeah,
So all these platforms and these communities help each other, right?
yeah,
About understanding about new trends and their own learnings, right? And
yeah.
yeah, and maybe it not fit for you, but of course there's a learning out there.
Right, right, right.
Yeah, it depends upon company to company how they want to adopt it, right?
Right, right. And how about the business functions? How do they see the talent acquisition role, right? And if there are any sort of improvements on their perception of this role, right? How do you see that shaping up in the industry?
So I'll probably just quote to all the examples that I have been a part of, all the
Yeah,
companies I've been a part of. I think
right.
it's primarily, Raj, the interaction and the continuous communication that you have with your hiring managers and business, right? Where you
Yeah,
keep them updated about what's the process happening, what are the new updates there, right? And probably just not letting them know what's happening in the pipeline, but
yeah,
also probably showing some outlier profiles also, making them
yeah.
aware that this kind of talent is available, like there is a talent available which probably might solve for a different reason, right?
Right.
So I think all those interactions help a lot, and at least for me, it has helped a lot. Where I go and talk to the business and understand, "Ki, what are we trying to solve for, or
Right.
probably go with a problem where I see ki, there is a problem and why this
Yeah.
is not being solved." So it just
Mm.
gives me a little more information, and where when I start a conversation with a candidate, I probably discuss that problem with them and understand how would they solve for it, right? So
Right.
just to get a gist of even how their approach is.
Right.
So I think with business definitely yes, the continuous communication, letting them know about the progress, sharing the data with them, sharing the feedbacks with them is very, very important, right? And the
Right.
end of the day, of course, celebrating the growth, right, and
Yeah.
celebrating the addition that you have been doing to the teams, right? The kind
Right.
of
Right.
talent that you've been able to attract.
Yeah.
Yeah, and last one more thing is, Raj, is making them aware about what's the talent landscape, right? Because
Yeah.
the hiring manager, for him, the focus is always to get the right set of people, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Now, which is a very blurred definition, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
whether you never get somebody as per your JD, right?
Yeah.
There's going to be plus and
It's a
minus.
myth.
Yeah, it's going to be plus and minus of the JD, right, here and there.
Yeah. Yeah.
But making them aware again is very, very
Yeah.
important. So whenever I start a search, my first step is to do talent mapping and sharing that information, maybe in very various terms, right, from a demographic to a diversity to the pedigree that anybody today we want to look at, right? So
Yeah. Yeah.
that just gives them a little bit more confidence, that you are very serious about the what you want to deliver about, right? So
Right. Right.
I
Right.
think that's very, very important.
Yeah, makes sense. Actually, in general, also understanding that as a business from either side, right? Either the recruiter understanding the business or the business understanding what recruiter is facing on the ground is very critical in general. And as you also pointed out, the communication side of things, right? A recruiter has to like have that good communication and not just communication, not in a way that it's just English, but also
A
what
meaningful
kind of
English.
yeah meaningful as well as like what kind of updates to be shared to which stakeholder, right? So
Yeah, yeah.
that's usually sounds good. And I think we are at the end of our podcast. I'll have one sort of on the lighter note. I've been asking to a lot of these TA leaders lately, so do you think AI will take TA jobs?
Oh my God. I think every person I try to question this answer, right?
Yeah.
My answer has been changing. So I don't know whether there's a right or even there's an answer or not, right?
Yeah.
On a very lighter note, right? Again.
Yeah.
I think I really don't have a right answer for this, Raj, but whether it's impacted, what I have been seeing day to day right now, I don't think it's yet impacted that much.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
At our levels, definitely not. It is not impacted. It has made
Right.
us smarter for sure. I think I've been talking about it on LinkedIn too, where treat or AI as your friend and not as your enemy, right? I think a lot of
Yeah.
people have been speaking about it, right?
Yeah.
Rather than going into those thoughts about AI is a kind of a worry to us. I don't think it's
Right.
worry. But
Right.
understanding the beauty of it is very, very important. So, and I
Right.
would request and urge all the people, all the recruiters out there, go and work with it, understand about it, study about it. There's so much of knowledge about it, right? Um,
Right.
they can just help you and enable you to be a bit better recruiter, also, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So for me, I don't think it's yet impacted because
Yeah.
again, it's just the beginning of it right now, right?
Right.
So
Right. Right.
whether it's impacting us as a at a recruiter level, definitely not because whatever we have been talking about, Raj, right? Automation is there, there is available, the platform is available, the tools are available, right? But
Yeah.
until and unless there's no use of it, which end of
Right.
the day is on depends upon the recruiters and the companies and the people involved into hiring process, right?
Right.
If
Right.
those cards are not getting moved, all this
Right.
automation is not going to be helpful to anybody of us, right?
Right. Right. Right.
So that human intervention, human touch, everything remains the same. That doesn't go. I don't think that kind of goes
And
anywhere.
it wouldn't go is my also understanding in terms of like if it goes then it becomes very mechanical in terms of candidate not having that feel of like
Yeah,
where they are joining, what kind of people are they going to work with, and so on, right?
yeah, yeah.
A funny fact, when I was starting Reczee ATS, I had interviewed around 100 recruiters, out of which at least 15 recruiters told me that are you building something which will take our jobs, right? This is even before ChatGPT, right? So
Okay.
this is the thing that they are afraid of, right? That this is probably some tool which will bring some automation which will reduce their work and probably get out of it. But they
Yeah,
don't see it sort of as a way where it can be an enabler as well, right? It can
absolutely.
be like it can save like probably 2-3 hours of your work which you're doing in say probably 10-12 hours of your work that you're doing.
No, I completely believe into that. Absolutely, where technology can solve for certain things, you should adopt it. Yeah.
Right, right, right. Makes sense. Makes sense. All right. Cool, Swapna. Thanks a lot for sharing these details, and hope the viewers also got to know a lot of things how TA functions. Your closing remarks.
Thanks, Raj, for the invite. I love the conversation out here. Yes, it is very tricky conversations because there's no right and wrong answers into this. It's all about, your art that you bring to hiring. For me, I think hiring is a little bit of science and art
Yeah.
that we need to get into.
Yeah.
And yeah, of course, my only request to everybody who is into this profession today of TA, or this
Right.
function, right, of TA, should not treat technology or should not treat ChatGPT or AI as their enemies, but try to enable, via them for sure.
Right. 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 Sounds good. All right. Thanks a lot, Swapna.
Thank you so much. Thanks,
Thank
Raj.
you. Bye.